Okay, so it's a great pleasure now for me to introduce Professor Po-Shen Lo. Po, where are you? Is Po here? Oh, good, come up. So Po is part of my research group, actually. So it's really fun to have him here, too. I see him every Friday when our Aladdin team meets. But also, he's also part of our NSF iCorp team. So that's another connection. And in fact, his company, which he'll talk about, was founded with a freshman and a professor, which is another kind of interesting thing. But let me tell you something else about Po. He's the coach, the lead coach for the Olympiad teams. And I don't know if you know about the Olympiads. Those are the brightest math students in the country who go on the Olympiad. And we're very fortunate to have Po at Carnegie Mellon because since he's been here, he's also been leading the Putnam teams. And I don't know how many people know about Putnam. That's sort of the college-level math equivalent to the Olympiad. And the past 4 years, Carnegie Mellon has placed in the top 5 positions. I think we were even second in the couple of years ago. So we're really on the top now because of Po and his enthusiasm, as you will see with his company. Thank you, Po.
Thank you. Hi, I'm a math professor. How many seconds do I have before you zone out? That's a pretty good answer. When I've given this talk before, I would do this, and the guy said, "What?" You're doing well. Okay. But if that's the case, then perhaps the best student-teacher interaction is interaction. And maybe the best interaction is a one-on-one tutor. So tell me, how many people were in your typical classroom in high school? 20, 30. Why wasn't it 1? Shouldn't it be 1? Because then you can do one-on-one. Why wasn't it 1? Too expensive. So let's think of the history back in around year 1100, when the monks were making their books and thinking, if only everyone in the world had but one book, then we would all be literate. Of course, back in the 1100s, how did you make books? You wrote them all down. Then something was invented. It was called printing press. And that cost issue went away. We can think about other situations like this. For example, it used to be that if you wanted to listen to some nice music, you would need to have your own private string quartet. But of course, that was solved by another major invention called the phonograph. So this issue about cost, let's revisit this issue of cost. Now, by the way, I'm not trying to pick on you at all, because you're correct. There is a cost issue, and I'm going to split it. But if we go back now, in fact, even in the 1994 speech, it was already commented that, you can already have an automatic system that gives this interactive experience one-on-one without even the cost of a human. So then the big question is, why isn't this everywhere already? The cost of running such a system could be extremely low. As we know, servers these days are not that expensive to operate. So the actual answer to that, if you dig a little bit deeper, is there is still a cost. It's called a fixed cost. But the variable cost of operation is 0, or practically 0. Does this make sense? Sorry, I'm a mathematician. I like to look at every problem that I ever encounter by taking a step back to revisit how the whole problem is actually framed and try to find a secret solution that will actually solve it better. So here we are at practically zero variable cost to deliver that service called an interactive tutor. There's only this big problem. How big is that fixed cost to program that tutor? Well, given that in 1994, it was already thought about to have such a tutor, and we still don't see one, presumably it's just because that cost is too high for any individual, too high for any institution, too high for any company. If you want to solve this problem then, there's one logical conclusion. It's to take a page from Wikipedia. I don't mean a Wikipedia page. I mean a page from Wikipedia's playbook. And that is called crowdsourcing. And we actually have already seen crowdsourced solutions, such as Wikipedia, Quora, Stack Overflow. And in fact, it's very logical to do the same thing for education if it could only be pulled off. And in fact, that's what Expii is. So let me now switch and show you a little bit about that. I want to talk product. In some sense, this talk is less of a PowerPoint and maybe more of a stand-up comedy and live demo. So let's go to the live demo. So what do I mean by an interactive lesson? Let's watch some physics in action. Is the sound synced? Are we good? Good. That was a 4-second video, which is a factor of 60 to 100 less than your typical online site. Because, as you said, how long is this time span? You only have 3 seconds anyway. Instead, there's a question. There's a yes-no question. What do you think? Yes or no? Yes. You think it's yes. Oops, I missed on purpose. To show you that you actually will get the feedback as if you had that interactive, that personal tutor in your pocket. Well, I say in your pocket because it works on a mobile, of course. But if you answer correctly, then your tutor keeps talking. And in fact, you can have an entire lesson delivered with practically zero variable cost over the internet because you can crowdsource the programming of this tutor. And as you can see, don't worry so much about the words. I'm just showing you how it feels to interact with this website.
It takes 3 hours to pump out the 800,000
That is a British accent, and that was the main purpose of this video. Because notice that that's a different accent than the first one. In some sense, the first key innovation of this entire site is to make it possible to create an article like that, an interactive article like that, without really needing to know how to program at all. In fact, our entire principle is, let's make it as easy as possible for the average person to create an interactive lesson. Of course, we're not going to go as interactive as the most state-of-the-art interactive tutors because we need to be able to be accessible by as many people as possible. So what you see on the left is a new programming language we've invented. It's called English. And it's basically write in English. And there are a few things, like you can grab any video you want off of YouTube. Does this work? Yeah, it works. You can grab any video you want off of YouTube, you get scissors to do start and end, and boom, you suddenly have the video. If you want to ask a question, then you see what we had over there. There's the statement of the question, ask, and again, it's as lightweight as possible. We are actually creating a WYSIWYG for this even at this moment. So, basic principle for the product, put into the hands of the entire public a toolkit for creating basic components for interactive learning. We're not building the whole kitchen sink, but we want to go up this payoff curve to get as far as possible, the most bang for your buck, so to speak, without going overboard. Then, what happens is that on each of these pages, there's another major innovation on the site, which is that on each of these pages, such as Gravity, there's not only one article. In fact, this is going to now address another major problem in educational content. The major problem is called, it is boring. It's a sad truth. There are some of us who don't find it boring. Those are all the people who, you kept learning. But the reason it's boring is because there's only one lesson. There's only one article. There's only one calculus book. There's only one course in this university on this topic. And it must be one that doesn't offend the sensibilities. It must be plain vanilla. But actually, we like things that are a bit spicy sometimes. Well, I do, but not everyone does. That's why not every food is spicy. And instead, along on the right-hand side, there is a whole bunch of different articles which are competing for what is called fame. Because in some sense, this one here, sorry, this one is a 4, this one is 13. And the idea is that the crowd votes to find out what is the best lesson, just like Quora or Yelp or Stack Overflow. So at this point, you actually even provide the ability for every topic to have multiple viewpoints that the crowd has identified. And the last page of the product is that, in fact, the way we organize all of this is in a big map of concepts in which each topic, like gravity, is a competition to write the best article in gravity. But this is a flowchart for your skills. And if you zoom out, you see that we've basically created a Google Maps of knowledge, Google Maps of math and science. And if you go into any other topic, like energy, then you suddenly find some article about gravitational potential energy. This, by the way, is all from the crowd. And the key innovation is to allow the crowd to identify all of these different angles and polish them so that you will be able to create at practically zero fixed cost a site which you can deliver at practically zero variable cost, but which provides the world with this interactive tutor that they can all benefit from. I should probably say something about a business because there are investors here. So that was the product. Let me move to business. So to put into context what our business strategy is, let me put a few slides that I won't maybe say so much about, but they'll illustrate what I'm trying to say. So before, there were lots of individual websites maybe created by professors, in which case they were showing their own take on this topic, and they were all scattered around, in some sense like the shareware market of a long time ago. You have all these individual pieces, a YouTube video here, my course website here. By golly, every professor has a course website. You've got everything all around. And then there came along several big aggregators like Coursera and Khan Academy. And these were sites which said, here, this is what we recommend that you study. These are certified classes in all of these disciplines. Sort of reminds you of something else that was going on in the 1990s, which was internet portals, which were saying, these are the things that we recommend. Although, as we remember from history, you wouldn't actually go to use recipes in the food and cooking. You might be more interested in just searching to find out what is actually the best content of what you're actually looking for. So we're moving along this direction. This is what I mean by rethinking about the entire space. So if you now realize that you're not trying to make a marketplace which just certifies that these are the right pieces of content, where you just make the pieces of content, then you want to make a site which crowdsources all of them, because indeed, usually the first article that you click on after searching on Google is what you consider to be, you click on the one that you consider to be the authority, called Wikipedia. And as we already know, what Wikipedia did to their competition is they forced Britannica to be free. How do you know Britannica is free? Well, of course, because the Wikipedia article in Britannica says that it's free. But so now, this is where we position ourselves. So we're going actually after creating, we're interested in crowdsourcing the best interactive lessons, so that ultimately where we sit on, say, a quality-quantity chart is we want to have as much quantity as possible, while at the same time having a quality in educational. I'm not saying that those are low-quality websites on the lower right. Those are all good sites. But in terms of ease of learning, we want to be maximized. And then, for the business model, if you already establish that you're not going to have a variable cost to make a margin on, and therefore you need to have a low fixed cost to start with, the best approach is to immediately set the price at 0, deliver a product which is 10 times better in terms of experience, to be an immediate drop-in replacement for all textbooks, and better at that point, page for page. That's a recipe for viral growth, because it solves a problem that people have called, I can't do my homework. And at that point, you monetize the entire company through value-added services on areas that do have variable costs, such as human-based tutoring or certification. So that's where we are going. But our first target is simply to go for the viral growth and the millions and millions of users. And for the last things I want to comment on are in terms of validation. So this site actually is one of these sites which you probably many of you have never heard of, because we haven't gone to tell the whole world about it. Instead, we were slowly telling parts of our community so that we could get feedback and keep improving. Nevertheless, throughout this beta, which has been going since about September, we've been getting consistently 2,000 plus monthly uniques coming through who have just heard about the site through word of mouth. There are already 2,000 plus posts on the site. And in fact, we've now started to go to trade shows, like one where there were 9,000 math teachers. That was a month ago. The bottom quote is something we just got in an email after that from one of the teachers. And the bottom line is actually what we have seen from actually talking to teachers, is that this product which we have created is something that excites not only students, but also teachers. And hopefully we'll be able to change the entire landscape of education. And as a final concluding remark, I should say a little bit about, so my background. My background is I'm actually a mathematician. I'm a math professor. I coach the National Math Olympic team. But ultimately, as a mathematician, I like to do one thing. It's called multiply. And my goal is I want to multiply the number of people worldwide who like math and science by 10. And we will do that with Expii. Thank you.